right now on 5 on Your Side at 10.
Tonight, a triple shooting in South St. Louis.
Something definitely needs to happen to change the trajectory.
The crime scene that led two men to run into a nearby business, bleeding. Plus, tonight, cluster bombs. The U.S. plans to supply them to Ukraine. We verify if they're banned in more than 100 countries.
But first tonight, tracking the trends on storm chances heading into Wednesday evening. What we know now and how that impacts your Wednesday plans.
Tonight, the heat is on in St. Louis, and that's fueling our chances of strong storms tomorrow. Good evening. I'm Mike Bush.
And I'm Ann Allred. Tomorrow is a weather alert day. We could see heavy rainfall and damaging winds. Weather First Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell is tracking the chances and the timing. Scott.
And the timing is more towards the evening hours and into tomorrow night as opposed to actually during the day tomorrow. Most of tomorrow will be on the dry side in St. Louis, but it's going to be steamy. Here's a look at why we have a weather alert day for your Wednesday, and it's mainly for the evening hours and for that scattered severe threat. That severe threat does include gusty winds and potentially even some hail. Any of those storms will diminish, though, before sunrise on Thursday. Where are the storms now? Well, they're developing, just a few of them back into Nebraska, up into South Dakota. That's the area we're monitoring this evening. That will congeal into essentially a pretty large complex and then start to fall apart as it moves into Missouri, northern Missouri, early tomorrow. That means we'll have a partly cloudy sky midday tomorrow. Temperatures going back into the lower 90s. You know the humidity's already back because you can feel it walking outside. So 95 will feel more like 100 tomorrow afternoon, and that heat and humidity plus the boundary from those thunderstorms to our north, that'll drift into the area towards tomorrow evening, and that's when our severe weather threat will increase. So we'll keep you updated on the timing of that and the changes that are coming. We'll break it down in more detail in just a few minutes, Ann.
Stay on top of the threat of severe storms. Get the latest Weather First forecast anytime by texting the word weather to 314-425-5355.
Tonight, 3 men are in the hospital after an apparent shootout in the St. Louis Hills neighborhood in South City. Neighbors say the gunfire first rang out during a rolling gun battle near Hampton and Gravois, ending several blocks away near Hampton and Eichelberger. Our Robert Townsend followed the breaking news this afternoon. He's live now outside police headquarters downtown.
Mike, tonight police are still very tight-lipped about that triple shooting. No doubt, though, people who live in that neighborhood are still talking about all that gun violence. In mid-afternoon, gunfire rattled this typically quiet St. Louis Hills neighborhood in South City. Neighbors tell 5 on Your Side several men got into a shootout in the parking lot at the CVS pharmacy near the intersection of Hampton and Gravois. They say the gunman then sped down Hampton and apparently kept firing at one another. A few blocks away, a worker at this lawnmower repair shop says several employees called 911 after 2 bleeding men stormed inside their shop.
Pretty surprising. We really don't see that out here really ever.
This couple lives in nearby Princeton Heights.
We're recently come to Missouri like 5 years ago or so, and it just seems like in the time we've gotten here, it's gotten worse.
Officers found one man with a gunshot wound to his eye and right shoulder. Another man suffered gunshot wounds to his throat. Police have not said if the 2 wounded men hopped out of this silver Malibu that reportedly had a bullet hole in a window. Investigators also say a 3rd man was shot and later arrived at a hospital in a separate car. Neighbors also say officers found a gun outside a nearby locksmith store.
Something definitely needs to happen to change the trajectory.
St. Louis Hills is well known for its family-owned restaurants and small businesses. Records show prior to today's shooting, there have been 3 aggravated assaults with a firearm in this neighborhood this year. Last year, there was just 1. Now, for the last 6 hours, we have called and emailed St. Louis police and asked them about suspects, motives, and right now at this hour, we are still waiting to hear from them. Live downtown, I'm Robert Townsend, 5 on Your Side.
3 people, including a juvenile, are now in custody in connection with the shooting death of a young man in Pagedale. Kenneth Hall and Darnisha Thomas Perry are being held on murder and robbery charges. The 3rd suspect is in juvenile custody. They are accused of robbing and killing 19-year-old Jalen Johnson early Friday morning near the St. Charles Rock Road Metrolink station in Pagedale. Investigators say surveillance video shows the three leaving the train with Johnson shortly before he was killed.
Tonight, a push to give seniors in St. Louis County a break on property taxes is on hold. County Council Bill 114 would allow most seniors who receive Social Security benefits to opt out of paying property taxes. The council didn't vote on it earlier today, saying they want more clarification on how to make up for that funding. At tonight's County Council meeting, the bill's sponsor, Councilman Mark Harder, says he wants to hear from more stakeholders.
Tonight, for the first time in 14 years, there's a new leader at St. Louis Public Schools. She started 2 weeks ago, but Dr. Keisha Scarlett was officially sworn in as superintendent at tonight's school board meeting. She replaces Dr. Kelvin Adams, who retired. Dr. Scarlett comes from Seattle Public Schools, where she served as assistant superintendent of academics.
Another Democrat has joined the race for Missouri's U.S. Senate seat.
I feel I have a duty to my state, my nation, and my God to mend what has been torn apart.
State Senator Carla May launched her campaign in downtown St. Louis today. She will face Wesley Bell and Lucas Kuntz in the Democratic primary. The winner will take on Republican Senator Josh Hawley, who is seeking a second term. Tonight, President Joe Biden skipped a dinner and family photo with other world leaders ahead of his speech tomorrow at the NATO summit in Lithuania. Today, history was made. The alliance welcomed Finland as its newest member and backed Sweden's bid. NATO leaders also agreed to create a path for Ukraine to join, but Ukraine's president calls the failure to set a timeline absurd. Ahead of the trip to Lithuania, President Biden announced that the U.S. will supply Ukraine with cluster bombs to help in its war against Russia.
But that move has drawn criticism. Tonight, we verify if cluster bombs are banned in more than 100 countries. Here's Ariane Till.
A cluster bomb is a type of explosive that opens in the air, dispersing dozens to hundreds of smaller bombs over a large area. Sometimes many of the smaller bombs fail to explode upon impact, creating a long-lasting hazard similar to a landmine.
For decades, human rights activists have urged countries to retire their cluster munitions because of the harm they pose to civilians, even decades after the conflicts are over.
After President Joe Biden announced the United States' decision to supply cluster bombs to Ukraine, many people on social media claimed that the weapons are actually banned in more than 100 countries. But is that true? Let's verify. Our sources are the International Committee of the Red Cross, the Convention of Cluster Munitions official website, the United Nations, and Mary Wareham, acting director of the Arms Division at the Human Rights Watch.
In 2008, governments around the world negotiated and adopted the Convention on Cluster Munitions Treaty, an international agreement banning the use of cluster bombs.
According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, the treaty prohibits the use, production, acquisition, stockpiling, retention, and transfer of cluster munitions. It also requires countries to destroy any stockpiled cluster munitions, clear areas contaminated by cluster munition remnants, and offer assistance to victims of cluster munitions.
Mary Wareham with the Human Rights Watch says the vast majority of people harmed by cluster munitions after an attack are civilians.
It's children who are killed and maimed most of the time.
According to the United Nations, 123 countries have agreed to the Convention on Cluster Munitions Treaty. So we can verify, yes, cluster bombs are banned in more than 100 countries.
But the United States, Russia, and Ukraine are not among those countries. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Till.
What can we verify for you? Please send an email. The email address is verify@kstk.com. The EPA just wrapped up a public meeting in Jefferson County to talk about plans to clean up lead-contaminated wells. The entire county is part of a Superfund site due to the high number of historic lead mines. New tonight, Laura Barczewski has details on the harm and solutions. Laura?
And tonight, the EPA focused on personal wells at homes in Jefferson County. The plan is to do more testing of those wells at people's homes for lead so they can provide a filtration system for free.
Hundreds of years ago, Jefferson County miners weren't setting up towns in a rush for gold.
The city of Old Mines in adjacent Washington County just had their 300th anniversary, and that town was founded because of the lead mining.
What you don't see in between beautiful trees and rivers are the remnants of more than 160 closed lead mines that are now hurting the people who live there.
The unfortunate truth is that the lead is still in the soil, it's still in the sediment, it's still in the groundwater. and it's not going anywhere. So we are literally trying to remove it wherever we find it.
The Environmental Protection Agency has been working in Jefferson County for 15 years. The entire county is a Superfund site, along with Washington, Madison, and St. Francis counties, removing soil and cleaning up what they can.
We wish we could clean up the groundwater, but right now what we're instead doing is making sure people have safe drinking water.
Most of the people affected now have personal wells in rural areas in the southwestern part of the county. The temporary solution from the EPA was bottled water, but they want to put in a permanent solution.
The filtration unit itself is about 12 inches long by about 4 inches wide. It's very small. It fits easily under a person's kitchen sink. We can also install them in bathrooms throughout the house if it's needed for young children.
They not only want to test the soil and water at people's homes, they also want to test their blood, as lead poisoning can be very harmful for children. They even offered free testing at the informational meeting.
The thing with lead poisoning, you don't know your child has it. So they could be ingesting it, and the only way to know is to get their lead level checked. Over time, it causes learning disabilities, behavioral issues, and neurological damages. And there have been levels, not with Jefferson County, of levels so high the kid had to be hospitalized.
The EPA says they want Jefferson County residents to review their plan and provide feedback, but also for people with wells to allow them to come test so they can give them bottled water until they can hopefully install filtration systems at the affected homes once this plan is finalized. So we'll have more information about how you can reach out to them at kstk.com.
A stolen car leads police on a chase in Alabama. Tonight, the armed suspect in custody, and he's only 8 years old. Prime Day is prime time for scammers. Tonight, spotting the deals and reviews too good to be true.
Safety in numbers. Trust when many, many, many people are saying something.
Why even bad reviews can't be trusted.
The storms are bubbling up well to our north and west tonight. How these storms impact what happens in our area later tomorrow. That in less than 10 minutes.